Hello team and welcome back to another Line War cast. This is your map today and a 1v1 between aka Misk in blue, who's picking in the bottom left here, and Plant Block in red. Plant Block very likely is going to spawn in the center middle of the map. Center middle, you know what I'm talking about. This block of red here. And then we'll probably have a big fight in the bottom center of the map where both players originally picked. That's why this territory is all crossed out, so that neither player can actually pick that as the starting position. And this is exactly what we see. Plant Block in the north going for an immediate airport, and aka Misk to the left building two factories with tanks as the first units. Two towns from Plant Block with two industry as well. So very heavy economic start from red. aka Misk has an opportunity to take a town, and does. With an airport, building helicopters. It is transport planes for Plant Block with commandos out of this barracks. So look to Plant Block to drop probably on this rightmost island, potentially on this mainland closer to aka Misk's base, or it could also just drop commandos right here on one of these three energy wells. Red's first refinery is... Let me do my scrolling. Alright, scroll wheel is probably broken. The first refinery for Red is up here in the north, very close to the base. aka Misk doesn't really have the same energy problem with two wells that are very close to the starting position. But as the game goes deeper, Plant Block will need to get a second refinery if Red wants to use energy-consuming units like tanks, planes, or any boats. Very unlikely that boats will be used in this game. There's a potentially on the right-hand side, there's a lot of territories that boats could cap, and transport boats could be used to move between these two islands. The same goes for the left-hand side. Could be transport boats to land, but I don't think that either player is going to build a dock to cap these 6 territories. In big news, there is an update on AI. It's in the Line War Discord if you'd like to follow along. But it sounds like AI is moving into an alpha phase. Extremely exciting. Needless to say, folks have been waiting for that for quite some time, and it sounds like we're getting close. Plant Block is building an interceptor after the first transport plane. There's one commando finished. The second one... There's actually 2 commandos already, so Red could start sending out these commandos at any point. And I think this is what this line closer to the airport is supposed to do. Have those commandos cap that territory and then get ready to get into the plane and go somewhere. It's more tanks from aka Misk. It's 4 in total. And after the 4th tank is finished, it's a switch into some SAMs from one factory and tanks out of the original one. And helicopters, as mentioned, from aka Misk. Helicopters, I think, in this iteration of Line War clearly being the strongest plane to use. Helicopters are planes. Strongest airplane unit or airport unit to use in general in the meta. There's obviously room for interceptors and strikers. Transport planes do a little bit of a different role with the movement of commandos. But certainly we see a lot of high-level players using helicopters. aka Misk, one of the very best. Plant Block also 100% knows what they're doing. And eco-wise, it's 497 or something for blue and 554 for red, which makes a lot of sense because red started with 2 towns and 2 industry instead of just 1 town and 1 industry. aka Misk is the first one to get a barracks in the center of the map, in this bottom area, which is, as mentioned in the picking phase, the spot where both players wanted to go originally. So the idea being that both players think this is a very strong point on the map. And aka Misk gets the first crack at it, digging into a forest, which is really nice. It gives blue control of this choke. It makes it very difficult for red to move past this point. And the transport plane is going to drop on the left-hand side, closer to aka Misk's base. Both players at this point are seeing where the other one is. This is Plant Block's vision, and this is aka Misk's vision. So in general, red knows that blue started somewhere down here. Because of the picking phase, can kind of assume that blue didn't start in this location and must have started over to the left. And it's two more factories, or rather two factories for red and another barracks, all of which are sending units down to the south. The commandos are really nice for plant block because they're going to get a great scout of the refinery and the town. This is plant block's vision already. There's negative stealth on the town and the refinery, so red can actually see that. And for red, maybe plant block will be able to get a scout of the helicopters, which is really like the big thing that AK Misk is going to show up with that's going to surprise red, potentially. There's only one SAM out for plant block. There is this nice little mountain range that the SAMs could dig into. Entrenched units in mountains get that extra defensive bonus, and the entrenchment just in general gives the units a range bonus. And now that plant block sees the 3 helicopters, one SAM is not enough to deal with it. There are 2 interceptors by this point. Yeah, 2 interceptors and a third on the way. So that'll be good for plant block. Kind of helps out a little bit. As long as AK gets the helicopters out before the interceptors can shoot one of the helicopters down, it'll be good for blue. Interceptors have the strength that they move clearly much more quickly than SAMs, so they have better mobility in dealing with these helicopters. Interceptors have very low health though, so they can't hang around for long when they're flying over top of SAMs. One helicopter's gone down, it will cost one interceptor potentially. Luckily for plant block, this SAM shoots this full health interceptor instead of the damaged one. And eco-wise, 654 for red and 681 for blue. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like there's going to be any replay tools that are part of the next patch, so I'm going to be reading you eco readings for the foreseeable future. But that's why you tune into the channel, to hear me say numbers to you and how they relate to the game. Nice pick off of the town by plant block. It's actually a pretty big deal at this point in the game. It will put red further ahead on the eco. And AK Misk's vision here, the commandos aren't close enough to the buildings to actually get spotted. So there's a large chance that plant block might be able to take this refinery. It's fantastic reaction timing from AK Misk to send the helicopters right to the refinery in defense, just assuming that that's where plant block's going to send the 2 commandos. And that's exactly what happened, so nice play by blue. And AK Misk is about to run low on energy, moving 6 tanks, or 7 tanks rather, towards the front. Still no refinery for plant block. It's in progress, now just finishing, so the interceptors and transport planes could start running again because red was low on energy, as you can see in the top right. 7 tank run by pretty good. There's only 1 helicopter for plant block, which makes this very nice for AK. There's a window here where these blue tanks could do a lot of damage because 1 helicopter won't be able to handle this many tanks before they destroy some amount of buildings. The interceptors will attack the tanks, but the DPS against ground units from interceptors is very low in comparison to strikers or helicopters or bombers. So that's 1 dead factory. Checking in on the commandos. As mentioned, very good defense from AK Misk, who puts another factory down in the center. And I think this is the important spot to watch. Whatever player controls this center part more is probably going to have an advantage in this game. Move command micro from AK Misk with this dot command with the 3 final tanks that are left over. If all the tanks are destroyed, then it's going to be 2 factories for 7 tanks. It's very early in the game, relatively speaking, so that might be worth it for blue to do this. Because importantly, it's 2 factories that red can't use to build SAMs anymore. Plant block's building a replacement factory. And there's 5 SAMs left, which is enough, but they can only be in one spot at one time. So AK might be able to use these helicopters very effectively if they can dance around the SAMs. Plant block has a very healthy economy, making 312 a minute at 724 total, and AK Misk at 320 a minute as well at 782 total. Very close game and top down. probably an equal amount of territories that both players have caps. It's a mix into artillery and SAMs for blue. No more tanks on the way. I feel like I hear the tracks of a tank. Yeah, okay, so there's tanks in the bottom of the screen. These three there are just capping. And a little skirmish of infantry. I know that the AI update includes the like handicapping for games, for lobbies, so you can have a 1v2 situation and have the player, it's just the one player have a boost in income, I believe. I haven't really tested it out or seen it in action, but it should help for games where there's uneven teams. And again, very exciting to see the progress there. Plant block is getting to the far right island at this point. There's no way AK is going to be able to get here anytime soon. And the plan from plant block is also to drop in the top right. Makes a lot of sense. It's two whole land masses that red is going to be able to take without being contested at all by blue. AK has not rebuilt this town, is rebuilding industries instead, which makes a lot of sense. Towns make... it's a good play to build a town with pre-construction money. It's not as good of a play to build industry with pre-construction money, but once you get past that pre-construction money, then industries are the more efficient thing to build, because they only cost 150 versus the town's 300. And when you factor in build time, it gives you a better return on investment. You can see how effective the helicopters are when they're not getting attacked by SAMs or interceptors. One goes down. And this interceptor's in a lot of trouble. It takes unfortunate pathing right over the SAMs. But in general, that's another good interceptor run from Plant Block. Taking out two of the helicopters and losing none of the interceptors. Still with the three that were originally built, it's helicopters out of the red airport at this point. And eco-wise, 884 for blue and 846 for red. There's no more commandos on the left-hand side for red. Most of the industries for blue have already been built. But there's still plenty of industry for blue to build here as long as AK Misk feels that it's a safe thing to do. And I think from blue's perspective, there's no real reason that they wouldn't build these industries, and that's exactly what we're seeing, because there's enough producers, there's a healthy army, and if you're looking at AK Misk's vision, this doesn't look too scary as it approaches. I think in general the same thing could be said for Plant Block. Since there's these two other industries that can be built, this is a city location, you can see, because these little roads leading to all the industries. And once all of a town's industries are constructed, you can build the city on the town location for 450 money. And it's when the city's completed, it's worth 10 territories. And top down, something is clearly wrong with the scroll wheel. Plant blocks on the rightmost island. And a little bit of a standoff in the center of the map. Both players still with very healthy economies, hovering around that like 300 per minute mark, which is kind of a rule of thumb for what's healthy, and AK finishes these two industries in the south. Rather finishes trying to build them. This is the big push from Plant Block. With a whole bunch of infantry, if you look at AK Misk's vision, it's very clear that Plant Block's making a move here. So we'll see AK Misk start to back up and build defensive lines. It's enough infantry that if blue didn't dig in here, it could be problems. Certainly with some of these blue units in front blocking these infantry, it gives AK Misk time to dig in. And eco-wise, 10-18 now for blue and 9-41 for red. Tough spot for plant block because this is now scary looking with all these defensive lines. Some of these units would be fatigued because when they dig in, they take damage to their health. But then it's just a judgment call if red thinks there's enough infantry to just overpower it. And I don't disagree with plant block for stopping here. Because it either works out super well for red, or you throw a bunch of infantry against defensive lines and then horrible trade and the game kind of spirals out of control from there. More eco for plant block in the top left. Also this airport, building more transport planes. So there's a transport plane on the right that's going to feed into the rightmost islands and then probably could drop here as well, and then transport planes in the top left. That presumably the idea is to drop on the far left of the map. aka Misk does have a dock. It's going to build destroyers, I believe. This is a destroyer icon. So I was wrong. One of the players is building a dock to cap all that territory and get a scout off. Destroyers have good vision so they can see inland pretty far. And this is a nice play, I think, from plant block to try to get a contain on aka Misk. This is a lot of territory that red could take. There's only 3 tanks really, and then a small group of infantry for blue. And so plant block's going to try to go through the forest. There's certainly enough infantry to actually do this. Infantry get a bonus when they're in the forest as well, of both damage and health, I believe. And now the question just becomes how costly this is going to be for red. Yeah, here comes this destroyer. It might be a missile boat. In fact, I think that is a missile boat. And if it is, it's great news for blue because it'll be able to stop that airport in the top left. And here's the only fight that matters on the map. Checking the ecos, it's 1107 for red and 1194 for blue, so still relatively close at the 21-minute mark of this game. So every trade matters. Plant blocks through the first line of defense of that infantry entrenchment. But you can see just how many blue units are pooled up here. I think in general, defender's advantage is going to be good for AK Misk, and blue will hold. The helicopters for plant block are in a great position. Now that they've landed here, they're going to get very close and be able to start attacking the reinforcing blue units. There's only one SAM that can do anything about it, and 4 helicopters can certainly take on 1 SAM. And this is Land War. This is why we love to watch it. So AK Misk also has a transport plane, sending 2 commandos across. It's only 1 transport plane from AK Misk who's transitioned into strikers. Strikers, the range of these blue planes are close enough that I think 3 of these buildings would be in range for the strikers to actually target them. Or if AK Misk uses a fancy little line to take the strikers on a better approach, a lot of these buildings are in range. And both players dropping commandos. AK Misk, you see these 2 commandos in blue in the top left. So blue scouts that airport where it is exactly. The strikers for blue are very good for commando cleanup. As long as the commandos can be spotted, strikers are very good at dealing with commandos. And this red army is thinned out. Super thinned out. There's a lot of SAMs, but There's not that many artillery pieces and very few infantry that are left. And it's probably going to set up AKA Misk for a strong counter push if blue decides to go for that. It's 1296 income for blue and 1244 for red, so still very close game. It is missile boats for AKA Misk. On the top left, this refinery is close enough to the shore that the missile boats would be able to attack it. I think overall this is looking good for AKA Misk, because blue is starting to take all of this territory and there's no real way that red can contest this anymore, given how the fight in the center went. Good eco development from Plant Block on the rightmost island, and the top rightmost island Plant Block nearly has entirely conquered at this point. Eco 1254 for red, 1371 for blue. And more factories for AKA Misk. Territory's capped. Plant Block might have slightly more, but it looks pretty close. Factory and barracks for AKA Misk. At some point, this dock will probably start building transport boats, with the intention from blue to actually go for a landing in the top left. Plant Block also has a dock in the center building missile boats. And this is a tough thing. Missile boats actually have the best anti-air in the game. They're better than SAMs by DPS. So they're very difficult to get rid of. In these numbers, when 3 helicopters show up, it's a little bit better. It's still RTS. If you have more quantity as a quality all its own, as they say. But it still becomes kind of expensive trades for red to actually get rid of all of that. So one thing that Plant Block has going for them is that this mountain range can be very good defensively. If red digs in here, in general it just slows the red or the blue units down when they try to transit this. Because it's red controlled territory, the blue units will move more slowly than the red units. Love this drop from AK Misk. It's going to be 4 commandos, and here's the plan from blue. To drop them off as far as the range of transport planes allows, which is this red line, and then move the commandos directly towards the refinery. And Plant Block sort of sees this in the fog of war. But it would be hard to... It's difficult to actually, see that given all the chaos going on. In Line War, you don't get notified when buildings are under attack or whatever it is. You just have to see it. You got to hear it yourself. So commandos can be very sneaky. There's still 1 missile boat. There's no more helicopters up here, which make me feel like the helicopters were all destroyed by the boats over time. A nice drop from Plant Block, who will destroy one of the refineries. Probably won't destroy this city or this town, because the strikers are launching right now. Oh, they're launching to transit to this airstrip? Yeah, that's what they're doing. Okay. 4 commandos here for AK Misk, though. And the town will still stay alive. Blue's deciding to go for it. The question is whether this will turn into the same thing for blue that it did for red earlier, which is a push that kind of fizzles out, and then Plant Block can push again. Eco-wise, 1274 for red and 1496 for blue, so AKA quite far ahead. Plant Block still has some amount of eco that could be built, but the fight in the center is the problematic point, because right now it's certainly favoring blue. Good SAM coverage from Plant Block though. 2 full dots makes it very difficult for any of these strikers to actually get involved in the main fight. And love this positioning from Plant Block with the missile boats that take down the transport plane. Helicopters in defense with these commandos that landed earlier, and Red is the first one to make transport boats to potentially open up a second front against Blue. 300 eco a minute, 1506 total for Blue, and Plant Block is starting to fall behind on the money per minute with 1284 total. You can see how much eco aka Misk is actually built in the south of the map. And then scroll wheel, top down. A lot of Blue. These tanks are really scary because they could jump on these SAMs. Tanks, one of the best roles they fill is SAM hunters. Or they'll just stay here looking cool, which is also very tactical. Nice play from AK Mist to actually send all the strikers at once to deal with those 2 missile boats. It sort of forces Plant Block to either build more missile boats or, you know, not build missile boats, and if there was more transport planes for AK Mist, which there are, the transport planes can go over the body of water more safely. So AK Mist feels a little bit of pressure, and that's why this factory is going down, to build more units. And just like Plant Block, AK Mist also has 2 full dots of SAMs. In general, SAMs are cheaper than helicopters, so losing an equal number of helicopters for SAMs is usually not a good trade. Of course, it all depends, it's all situational. But that is a very expensive mission. Plant Block continues the drop. I think this is really good for Red to make sure that AK actually has to pay attention to the left-hand side of the map. And then, of course, if any of these Red commandos got loose and could destroy one refinery and a town, it could kind of snowball out of control. There's really not that much energy production for Blue. See, it's the 2 refineries feeding into this 1 depot, so losing one of the refineries could be a big deal. Ragdoll physics looking phenomenal as always. And 1296 eco for Plant Block, who's starting to make more per minute. 1636 for Blue, who's also starting to make more per minute. Plant Block puts down this very aggressive barracks. I think given the situation in the game, that risk makes a lot of sense. And AK Misk now has... Oh, there's a dock in the bottom right. I think this is the killing blow. Now that Blue is going to take this entire island. There's no Red barracks here. There's going to be a relatively constant reinforcement of infantry to the far right island. And unless anything drastically changes on the left-hand side of the map, this push in the center will just get better and better for Blue. So even under fire from the artillery pieces, this is how the tanks do against the SAMs. I don't know why this tank just started attacking this one instead of the other one that's almost dead, but it is what it is. Great trade for Red. The response from Plant Block to all these infantry on the right-hand side, because this is Plant Block's vision, there's no more units here, and you can see all these territories in the fog of war that are changing hands. The response is to use the helicopters, but there's only 2 that are left. That second one just getting built. And now AK Miss decides to back up again. For blue, it's okay to back up here and take the fight because blue is ahead on the eco. Trying to get a beachhead started on the top left. I think once there's enough transport boats here, blue will be able to do that. And there's good cover from missile boats for AK Misk and all the SAMs that are on land. Plant block's officially in the red on money per minute, 1234 total. And AK Misk at about 500 income total. 500 income more total than red. Overall, a very close game. All that blue territory in the water. Very good for AK. There's no dock on the right-hand side for plant block as well. And the power of entrenched units is... It's going to be very difficult for plant block to actually break through. A rocket could be useful, but besides that, it would just take a very large flanking force to push through these defensive lines. With these 4 infantry moving inland, I'd say that the beachhead is sort of secured for blue. And there's a second transport boat, which is actually very big for AK Misk. And this is what you love to see. You love to see these artillery fights. Artillery blob versus artillery blob. There's a lot of helicopters for AK Mist that can either get to the right-hand island very quickly or get in the fight here. This one dot of SAMs is a little bit problematic for the helicopters, but one of the things I feel that is sort of understated is sometimes the best thing to do with your helicopters is not do anything with them, which is sort of counterintuitive to, like, you know, units in RTS. You want to get value out of them all the time. But if the alternative is to use your units and lose them in a bad trade, I think Line War sometimes lends itself more to just sit on those units and then use them when it's more appropriate. 2 cruisers from Plant Block, which are easily the best pound for pound unit in the water when it comes to boats versus boat fights. Long term, this would help Plant Block to actually establish like a naval dominance. The tough part is that there are still a lot of strikers for AK Misk, and cruisers are very bad against strikers. I'd love to see the units lost at this point of the game. I love this play from Plant Block, taking out one of the constructed towns. And unless the helicopters jump over, these 3 commandos would be able to destroy this other town. My guess is that AK Misk is going to send the helicopters over to the right-hand side pretty soon. And there's a rocket on a stand now for AK Misk. This is a great rocket. It will certainly be able to reach this far. And when that rocket lands, it will probably be the end of the game. I think this is the game-ending move, though. There's no real way that Plant Block's gonna be able to save all this in the top left. Nice play from Red to destroy that town. Eco-wise, it's 1869 for blue and 1179 for red. Well played. GG. Well played both for sure. I mean, AK Misk and Plant Block, 2 very good players. I think AK Misk is top of the ladder right now, or was top of the ladder. I don't think anyone really pays attention to the ladder as much anymore, but this was a game from the 1v1 tournament. 1v1 league, I suppose, being run by Desobnerin. I will link Desobrin's YouTube channel in the description below. Desobrin does some casts. I'll link John Joe's YouTube channel as well. John Joe does some Line War casts as well. Well played both. As mentioned, AI, there's a beta or an alpha for it now. If you want to check out more details, you can check out the Line War Discord. Learn more about the game, chat to folks, you know, ask questions. Show up and ask when AI is gonna drop. No one's ever done that before. And, you know, just in general, keep tabs on the game. But I hope you enjoyed this cast. Thank you for the support. Whether you watch the video, comment on it, like it, or subscribe to the channel, it all helps the channel grow. Long live Line War. And I hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are. Peace, folks.